Hey, this is Ishar, and in today's talk, I'll be going over the gifts of each Ayurvedic dosha. And if you're new to the Ayurvedic system, Ayurveda is the complementary sister science of yoga, and it studies life and also the various elements of life itself. So, according to Ayurveda, there are five great elements that make up our natural world. And these elements are space, air, fire, water, and earth. And the proportions of these elements can be found within us, and they can make up our mind body constitution. Now, these proportions of elements within us can be further grouped into three main categories, which are known as the doshas. And these doshas are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And these make up our mind body constitutions. And intuitively, we can observe this interplay of elements when we notice differences in people. So, for example, when we say that, oh, that person has a very fiery personality, we may be pointing at that they have a lot of the fire element within them. Or if we say that, oh, that person seems very spacey, we may be referring to the air element within them, which Ayurveda talks more about. So, you can have a combination of these doshas also. So, for example, you could be a Vata Pitta type or Vata Kapha type, for example. But just for simplicity in today's talk, I'll be going over one dosha at a time and some of the natural gifts that come from that dosha. So, let's go over the first dosha, which is Vata. And Vata is made up of the elements of air and space. And this also happens to be the mind body constitution dosha that I tend to fall into. Whenever I've taken tests, I get 95% or 90% in Vata. So this is where I fall under. Now, with Vata, since it's made up of air and space, a person that has a Vata body type would be very light, similar to space and air. And when we describe someone with a Vata mind, it's a mind that tends to be very active and sometimes even overactive because constantly thinking up new things. And a person who is a predominant Vata type tends to be up in their heads quite often and a bit disconnected from their bodies, very much like space. And one of the gifts, however, that comes from the Vata dosha is that these thoughts can actually be transformed and channeled into high creativity. So if you think of a lot of the great inventors in the world and people that have created a lot of things, they were people that probably had very busy minds. They're constantly thinking about different solutions and different ways they can solve problems, and their mind was constantly running. So they were able to take that energy or force and channel it into creativity. And Vatas tend to be very creative, and so whenever they engage in something, they're constantly thinking about different ways they can approach whatever that they're doing. So I know when I'm making these types of videos, I almost have like 20 to 30 different other videos in the back of my mind. So I have to slow myself down. And that's one of the gifts that Vatas tend to experience. And Vatas also are highly flexible and adaptable. So if you think of the element of space and air, it can kind of go anywhere. And that's one of the wonderful gifts of the Vata. So Vatas tend to do very well in the fields such as art, music, theater, spirituality, photography, writing, making videos, or on the 9 to 5 side of things, they can get into design work or event planning, developing, consulting work. So these are just a few examples because they really capitalize on the creative aspect of the Vata and also flexibility and adaptability. And then one gift or superpower that comes from being a Vata, if a Vata learns how to step into their power positively, they can be magnificent creators. So the power of creation comes from the Vata. So because the element of space is immensely vast, similar to awareness, how it's just everywhere, a person that has a lot of Vata properties within them are able to pull and draw from many different sources of ideas and also pull from different influences to come up with something radically new that many people haven't seen. So that's a wonderful quality that Vatas can possess. Now, the next dosha is Pitta, and Pitta is made up of the fire element and also the water element as well. And people who are of the Pitta constitution tend to be very well built. They have a muscular physique or can put on muscle very easily. They tend to be very ambitious. They can be described as having a fiery personality. They tend to be competitive, motivated, goal oriented, and have a strong vision and drive. So, high determination and resilience to things that come their way. So, if you know anyone that tends to be always busy working on different projects, they tend to be very motivated and never can never sit still, always active, and they don't really get sick that often. They tend to be a pitta, and pittas tend to do well in competitive industries like sales, law, business, and sports. But even outside these fields, a person that is predominantly a pitta can has a desire to rise up to the top in whatever they do. So even if it's not a conventionally pitta field like pottery, for example, they might have the drive to simply make the best works, and they have that deep desire to become the best pottery person in the town, maybe even teach others or open up a pottery studio. So that's just a example, but it goes to show you the drive that pittas tend to have. One of the gifts that Pittas can learn to tap into is their strong visionary nature. So Pittas typically have a strong goal orientation mindset, and they like to have a mission in life. And they tend to attract other people to their mission. So they gain followers for their particular path in life. And fire is associated with the element of transformation also. So through hard work, a Pitta can not only change the situations in their lives, but if harnessed positively, they can also change the lives of other people for the better. So Pittas tend to be very strong personalities that are strong leaders that can influence others for a greater cause or a greater good. Now, the last dosha is Kapha, and Kapha is made up of the water and earth element. So you can describe the combo of these two elements as the qualities of stableness, of steadiness, of being heavy, slow, cold, and soft. So physically, kaphas tend to have a bigger frame. They also tend to move a bit slower and have a general ease towards life. They like to take life as it comes rather than going after things. Their personality tends to be warm, caring, and nurturing. And kaphas tend to thrive in environments where the focus is on people and fostering relationships. So they really do well as teachers, as counselors, or therapists. And they also prefer routine due to their steady nature. So, different roles, such as being an admin or being an accountant, for example, can suit the kapha's nature of dependability and stableness. And one of the things that I admire about kaphas are their ability to simply give love without any kind of walls. And they have a down to earth nature about them as well. And kaphas really have the gift of connection and love, and they can be great healers. So that's one of the things that kaphas can learn to step into as their gifts to the world, is because they can be very stable and obviously listening and empathetic to other people, and they can be dependable, and they can be the rock that other people can turn to when they're having a crisis or they just need someone there. So it's also very interesting to note that while your dosha tends to be stable throughout your life and it doesn't change from one dosha to the next, you can naturally draw upon these different elements, and you can alter it through things like diet, lifestyle, motivation, and other things to assist you on your journey in life, whatever it is. So, for example, as a Vata, in different phases where I was drawing upon the elements of Pitta, and I could think of a time when I was 19 where I was very much leaning into this aspect of this quality. At the time, I was living in a desert climate, which was very hot, obviously, and was eating spicier foods at the time. I was also engaged in competitive sports and activities, was lifting weights more often, focusing on goals. So I was emulating more of that Pitta energy. And I also noticed that it was easier to tap into these certain qualities, such as decisiveness, strength, persistence, zest for life, and, let's just go out and take on life as it is. And then when I had slowed down my lifestyle a bit more in recent years and, became a bit more sedentary and reduced activity, and I was focusing more on meditation than, working out and focusing on loving kindness practices, I became more kapha like and was able to access more of that monk like qualities, so to speak. So there's some qualities that came with this were patient listening, heart based intuition, and the propensity to wait versus simply go out and just take on action. So I felt more grounded. So you can use this advice to see what your natural dosha is and then see if you are lacking in any uh, qualities. You can see how to develop it through changes in your lifestyle and your diet and other factors. So I hope this talk helps and curious to know what your dosha is and what you found helpful in this talk. Thank you.